All right. So the
Thank you
first
for
thing I want to do is, yes, sir. So I will share my screen, so you can see everything going on. All right. I believe you can all see my screen now.
yeah.
All right. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go to AWS. Remember, so in fact, let's start all over again. Let's start all over again. So I'm going to create the folder for the project. So, all right. So in the trainings folder, I have a folder in my computer called trainings, and in this folder, I'm going to create a another folder called cyber classes, something like that. And I'm going to see the intro cyber classes. And I'll open this in Visual Studio Code. It's always good for us to have a place where we can type things. And here, I'm going to create a file for maybe where we are going to be. So basically, what we need to do is we need to first have a virtual server. Very important. We need a virtual server. And that virtual server should have the following requirements. So if you are on a production environment, production means that this is the one that the users are going to be using. This is the one that if you are going to expose to people, maybe the one they are going to be the commercial version. So it will have minimum of 8 GB of RAM, 8 GB of RAM. It will have 4 CPUs minimum. It's going to have 40 GB of storage. By storage, I mean it could be SSD, it could be any type of storage, but it's 4 GB. Now, if you are doing it in a development environment, then it should be half of what we have here. So that should be 4 GB of RAM, to be 2 CPUs, and at least 12 GB of storage. So we need a virtual server. A thorough understanding of DKIM, PTR, which we are going to be discussing, and SPF is needed, and then some DNS settings is required. We're going to be taking a look at Docker and Docker Compose. Docker and Docker Compose. Please, you need to understand that this is networking class. This is cyber security. So you need to learn a lot of things at a very, very fast pace. So in cybersecurity, you've got a number of things you need to learn. You are required to learn. But the key thing is that you should be ready to learn this thing at a very fast pace. So Docker and Docker Compose. We are going to be taking a look at EC2, AWS EC2. So if you are not using AWS, you can use any type of cloud provider, but I'm using EC2. Then we are going to be using, we need the domain name. So you need to have a domain name. So these are the things we need. So let's start with the first one, a virtual server. So I'm going to go to back here and I'll go to aws.amazon console. That's aws.amazon.com. So I'll go to, okay, I think I have an account already. Sorry about that. I'm going to click on sign in. So I will sign in as a root user. So this is going to be my email address. And I will provide my email address here. I'm going to sign in. So now that I've signed in, I need to go to So the first thing I want to do is to create provision an EC2 virtual server. You can say it's a virtual servers in the cloud. So we provision an EC2 virtual server. We're going to click on this. So right now we don't have any virtual server or any instance running. So an instance is a computer. It's like a let's call it a computer that is running virtually. So you cannot gain access to it because it is not a physical computer. So I'll click on this and I'm going to launch a new instance. So here I'm going to give this one our mail server because that's what we are building. You can call it anything you like, but I'm giving this mail server. And I want to choose Ubuntu. So you have to ensure that you're on the free tier. Yeah, this is free tier eligible. You don't want to choose the ones that are not free tier. You just want to maintain the latest. So the latest Ubuntu now is 22.04. LTS here is lifetime support, and I'm using SSD volume type, so that's fine. Of course, it has to be 64 bits. In fact, you don't want to use this. This is fine. So then, what we have here is 1V CPU. So we need to. This is not enough. If you look at our requirements, see we need 4 GB of RAM, 2 CPU, and 20 GB of storage. So this is not enough. I'll click on this and go select this medium, T2.medium. This has 2 vCPU and 4 GB of RAM memory. So I'll click on this. But please note that as you create this thing, please don't forget, once you are done with the experimentation, you want to delete this. Don't leave the instances running, because if you do so, AWS will charge you. They're going to charge you. And these things can be very, very expensive. So you don't want to leave the instances running. So as soon as you are done, you delete it. So then we need to create the key pair. So the key pair allows us to connect to our EC2 instance. That's what it does. That allows us to connect to our EC2 instance. So I'm going to click on create a new key pair, and I'll give this mail server. So that's the name of the key pair, mail server. So these are all encryption, different ways of encryption. We've got the RSA, we have ED 25519, and then these are all private key formats. So the ones that we're going to be using, we will discuss this in the future in our future classes. We discuss encryption in the future. So RSA is one we are choosing, and we are choosing the .pem. So I'm going to click on create key pair, and it will download it. You can see it at mailserver.pem. It will be downloaded. So we'll scroll all the way down. So we leave all of these the way they are, and then we select allow HTTPS and allow HTTP traffic. So this will activate 443 for secured HTTPS and port 80 for the non-secure HTTP traffic. The SSH will give us port 22, because that is the port for SSH. That's the default port for SSH. This means that all IP address can connect to this our server. If you want to filter IP addresses that should be able to connect, you just click here and set your IP address. So only your IP address can connect, or you set a custom IP address that should be able to connect. But we will leave this as it is right now, because this is actually the easiest. Let's leave it like this, and you can see that it gives you that info down here. We want to ensure that we have 20 GB of root volume. We don't need encryption. There's no point for that. And then once we are done, we are good with this, then we can launch our instance. Once the instance is running, we go back to the dashboard. You can see that it's pending right now. So we'll click on the instance ID, and you can see that the instance state is still pending. So we have to wait for it to be running or active. Right now, there are 2 types of IP addresses that we need. We've got the IPv6 is not activated by default, so AWS will not give us that. We already know what an IPv6 address is. We discussed it in our previous class. For the IPv4, you can see that there are two types. There's a public IPv4 address. There's a private IPv4 address. So the private IPv4 address is used internally by the computer, while the public is the one you want to interact with. This is the one that you are going to be interacting with publicly. Now that it is running, the next thing you want to do is to connect to this instance. So I'll click on connect here, and then it brings us to this view. So there are 4 ways you can connect. We have the EC2 instance connect, that you can just click on connect here, and it opens a window or a tab in the browser that you can interact with. So we're not going to use this method. You can use the session manager, which requires you to set up certain things like SSM agent. So we're not going to use this method because of the fact that it requires some understanding of AWS policies and all of that. So we're not going to go into this right now. If you are doing cloud computing, or you understand, I'm sure in the future we'll come back to this. We have the EC2 serial console. Again, this requires us to do some setups, so we're not going to do this. So the most preferred that you are going to be using 95% of the time is SSH client. This is the one that you should pay attention to. So this SSH client, remember that while we were setting up our EC2 instance, we activated the SSH. So meaning that the port will be available for us to use. So now that we have this, we are here, we are going to follow these instructions. The first thing is to locate our private key. It says we should open our SSH client. In our case, it's going to be the terminal, which is this terminal here. In your own case, it's going to be the commander that you downloaded. So this is the time for you to power up your commander. You are not going to be using your command line. Otherwise, so what you are going to be using is commander. If you are on Ubuntu, you use your terminal. If you are on Windows, you use commander that you downloaded at the beginning of the training. So back here, it says that we should locate our private key file. So the private key file that we downloaded is inside the downloads folder. If I do an ls rep and I do pem, you can see that we have this. So I'm going to delete this one because we don't have it. So I'm going to remove forcefully, and it will delete that for us. So if I run this again, we have this mailserver.pem. So the instruction says that we should run chmod 400 mailserver.pem. So this means that we want to ensure that we will not accidentally modify the mailserver.pem. That's the meaning of 400. It removes unwanted permissions from the user, so that the user will not be able to modify this private key. This private key is very important. So we run this, and then the next thing we want to do is we connect to that instance by using its public DNS, which is this DNS here. So I'm just going to copy this code from here. I will paste here, and then I will try to SSH. It's asking us to confirm our fingerprint. I'm going to say yes, and it has added that to the list of known hosts. So you can see now that we have actually SSH into our EC2 instance. You can see down here that we've got the IP that will match the private IP address that we have here. So if I click on this, you see this IP address. It has to match 172.31.28.133. 172.31.28.133. So now we are in our virtual server. Please, I want you to pay a lot of attention. I have gone through a lot of audios to make sure that we have this class recorded, so that you can play this class over and over. And I would ensure that this class is not rushed. So we're going to divide this class into 2 or 3 sessions. This is the first session. So at the end of this training, the class will be available, the video will be available, because we are doing cloud recording. Hopefully there won't be any problem with the where the storage is, so that we can have access to the video immediately. This is the sort of thing that you do that shows that you are proficient. So please take this class very seriously. So I'll come back here, and you see that this private IPv4 matches what we have down here. So this first thing you want to do anytime you are in a new instance, especially when it's Ubuntu, you can see it Ubuntu, is you want to do sudo apt get update. Sudo apt get update, and that will update the repository that Ubuntu gets packages from. And then you may want to upgrade also. So I'm going to clear. Remember, I am not on my computer right now. I am on the instance, on the server that is on AWS. So, and I will do sudo apt get upgrade. Oh, okay, I've done that already. So I'll do upgrade now, not update, upgrade. And that will, it will do some upgrading for us. If there is a need for you to do that, that will take some time, but usually it should not be an issue. So we do that. So let's wait for it to complete the upgrade process. Okay, let's wait for it to finish. Okay, so it's asking us that to enter the services that we want to restart. So right now I'm going to press my tab so that it leaves this as default. So I'll just press tab one time and it leaves this, and I'm going to press OK. And yes, it only restart those ones that are picked by default. I don't need to set anything. So I'm going to clear here, and we need to start setting up certain things right away. So we need to start setting up certain things right away. So the first thing we need to do here is, so we need to add. So we don't have to anyway, because even if we do it right now, AWS will not respect the settings. What I mean is that we need to add this user, this current user, we need to add it to the list of sudoers, or to add it to the sudo group. For example, if I do an echo user, you can see that it tells us the current user. So if you want to get the current user right now, you can just do echo user and it gives you the current user. So anytime we want to do anything, we have to put a sudo in front. So that's because sudo means super user do. It gives Ubuntu the privilege of doing a number of things by default. So what we want to do is we want to add Ubuntu to the user that have sudo privileges by default. But again, let me reiterate that AWS will not, because of the way AWS is set up, is not going to obey this. However, if you are using other cloud providers like Volta or Linode or DigitalOcean, then you should do this. So I will deliberately type this out now so that you will see how it's done. So what you need to do is you need to do sudo user mode. Then you want to append to a group, and then the group you want to append to is sudo, and then the user you want to add to that group is Ubuntu. So this is the command you're going to type in. I understand that this class is packed, so it's deliberate because this is cybersecurity and networking. The class will be packed, and we are just getting started. So it's not it's an advanced class. Sudo user mode, A means append, G is for the group, and the group you want to append the user to is sudo, and the user you want to append is Ubuntu, and you can see the Ubuntu up here. So I'm going to do that. You can see that nothing happens, so the code runs. If I enter the wrong user, if I do like this, you can see that it says Ubuntu does not exist. So that's very important. If I enter the wrong group, you can see that the group does not exist. So that command really means something. All right. So after we've added that command. Again, the command is sudo user mode append to the group, capital letter G. The group you want to append to is sudo, and the user you want to append is Ubuntu. That means you are adding the current user to the list of authenticated users, or to the list of authorized users. So you don't have to be putting sudo anymore in front of your command. But on AWS, you still have to be using sudo. So again, I'm showing you this in case you are working with Linode, or you are using DigitalOcean, or you are using any of these other cloud providers. This is AWS. By default, the user you are going to be provided with is Ubuntu. So this is how it works on AWS. The next thing is we need to secure our server. This instance needs to be secured. So we need to secure it by installing what is called fail to ban. Why do we need to install fail to ban? So remember that we want to set up a mail server. So we need to prevent brute force access into our mail server. Brute force is a kind of access that is carried out by multiple computers in such a way that they continue to guess passwords. So they will continue to guess the passwords of your server until they get it right. It can take a long time, it can take a very short time, but the computers will continuously be guessing the password of your server. So that type of attack is called a brute force attack. Let me spell it out. It's called a brute force attack. So this attack is carried out where it's in such a way that the computers that are trying to attack you will be guessing the password of your server continuously, multiple guessing based on different infrastructures until they get it correctly. So that type of attack is called a brute force attack. We can minimize that attack by using a package called fail to ban. So how do you install that package? So we're going to be using fail to ban. It's a very common package. If you are using Linux, you should know this. Fail to ban. So to add fail to ban, we're going to install it. So that should be sudo apt-get install fail to ban. We're going to do that. And it's asking you, yes, I'm going to say yes to it. So it's asking which service you want to restart. I think I'm not restarting any service. I'm just going to type my tab and I will say okay. So now, if you are working on other systems, you also need to bring in what is called firewall. You need to set up your firewall to prevent unauthorized access into your server. So firewall is going to be this way. Understand? So you can see it. So you can do sudo ufw status, and it tells us that it is not active right now. So firewall allows you to set certain you can set some authorized, you can prevent unauthorized access into your network by using firewall. So you can prevent unauthorized access into your network by setting up a firewall. So I'm going to show you how to set up a firewall quickly, so you understand how these things work. It's not really very any question before we proceed? Any question before we proceed?
I must confess, I'm lost beyond questions now. I have to look. This is a lot to take in.
Yeah,
And
I get
also
that.
considering the fact that we can't be doing it immediately as you're doing it. So we have to go
Yes,
back, watch the video, and try to replicate what you've done.
yes. Okay. Um, so I'm going to. There's no way. See, I understand that it is a lot, and that's how cybersecurity is. A lot of things are going to be thrown at you every time, every time. So we're not going to be, taking the class and like as if you are learning data or web development. So everything in data analytics, everything in web development, you bring your knowledge of those things, you bring them into cyber security. So I'm coming, please. Let me quickly uh, do this. So I want to quickly think I have yes. So let's see how to so we install fail to ban, we've done that already. So in case you don't have so I have it because by default the firewall will be added by default. You have that firewall added by default. So so in case you don't have it, the way to install it, by the way, UFW is a firewall, uncomplicated firewall actually. In case you don't have it, you have to do a sudo apt get install UFW. So a firewall is like a protection surrounding your network. So it prevents unauthorized access into your network. You are building a network right now, so and you don't want unauthorized access into that network. So you set up an uncomplicated firewall. You may not have it if you are installing it because I'm using AWS. A number of packages have been pre-installed. But if you are using instance from DigitalOcean or Volta or Linode, you may have to install this yourself. So this is what you do once you have it installed. I have it already. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to deny all incoming traffic. You want to deny. So to do that, it will be sudo UFW default deny incoming. So this will deny all incoming traffic like that, and then it will deny. Then you want to allow all outgoing traffic. So you will realize that we may have to change this later. If you are on Ubuntu, if you are on AWS, you may have to come back here and change this later. But let's do it like this because this is what you will be doing if you are not on AWS. Then you will do sudo UFW default allow outgoing, so that you want to allow um, all outgoing traffic, and that will do that. Then the next thing you want to do is to allow certain ports. You want to open certain ports. You want only those ports to be available. Remember that, again, if you are on AWS, you might not need to do what I'm doing right now. But if you are on DigitalOcean, Volta, then please do these things I'm doing. They will really help. So I will do sudo UFW allows. So let's allow the following port 22. Want to allow port 25. Want to allow port 80. Remember that when we were setting this thing up, we already allowed port 22, if you remember, and port 80. That was the HTTP that we checked when we were creating our instance. So already we've allowed this. But again, you may not be using AWS, and that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this deliberately because you may not be doing this on AWS. Port 80 or HTTP port 110. Some of these ports are for emails. Port one, some of them are for POP3 and IMAP. 143, 443. We have 465, these are all common ports. 587, 993, 995, 4190, and TCP. So this means that all of these are TCP ports. You want to open them. So once you do that, of course, the rules have been updated. Now you can even you can enable. That will be sudo UF. If you do status like this, you can see that it's still inactive. So you need to do sudo uncomplicated firewall enable. So that will enable it. It's asking, it says it may disrupt existing SSH connections. Do we want to proceed? Yes. So please note that if you do not activate, if you don't put 222 here, you will not be able to use the shell anymore. You have to put 22. Otherwise, you will not be able to use this shell anymore. So note that the SSH uses port 22, and if you don't put this 22 there, you will not be able to access your instance via the SSH manager, which is the terminal or commander in your own case. So we are done. I know I'm going to clear here. So the next thing we want to do is to install tools like Call. And I think I have Call already. I have Call. So if you don't have Call, you can install it by doing sudo apt-get install Call. So Call is what we use to download things in the terminal. Call is used for downloading things in the terminal. So if you want to download things, use Call in the terminal. Any question? Anyway, let's continue. Let's continue. So use Call in terminal. So let's continue. I'm not going to do that because I have that already. Okay. So the next thing we are going to be doing is to set up our DNS. Let's quickly do that. This is where we need to set up our email, our DNS. So let's quickly do that. So, and what we are going to be setting up is what we call the reverse DNS entry. So let's do that. So our domain name, the domain name I want to use is Shedrack. The domain name that I have to use is Shedrack.com. Don't worry, this session will stop very soon. I know that this is fully packed. So we're going to, and it is supposed to be a project. So by the time you complete the entire session, the whole sessions, I'm sure the confidence will be there. You will already be able to grab some things. So the domain name that I want to use is shedrack.com. So, and I have this domain name. I bought it with Namecheap. So I'll go to Namecheap. That's where my domain name. That's the company where the domain name is. So I'll go to Namecheap. I'm going to log into my account. So it's asking me to enter a username. So let me quickly do that. Put astronaut. I doubt if this is even the I don't think so. Yeah, this is not it. So what I would do is I'm going to do it on the other browser so that I can quickly gain access to it. That will be Namecheap. Here. Please, can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now I have logged in. This is my account here. And if I click on, you can see that I have a domain, shedrack.com, that I'm managing with these guys. So I'll click on manage. So I need to connect my domain name. This is my domain name right now. I need to connect it to my server that I have here, this instance that I have there. I need to connect it. But there's a little problem. The problem is that don't forget that you must be in Ohio. Please note this: Ohio is very important. Your location, your region must be this area. Please don't select London. Don't select any of these. Don't select, because if you select any of these, you may not be able to set up your mail server easily you have to ask for permission from AWS to do some things. So please don't use that. Just follow what I'm doing. Use Ohio instead. So now one thing is we need to sort out something. If I shut down this server right now, you can see it is running, and the IP address that we are given is this. This is the IP address we have. But if I shut down this server and restart it and start it over again, this IP address will be lost. So it means that the IP address is not stable. It continues to change. It is dynamic, and we don't want that. Because if the IP address continues to change, that means that our users will be having difficulty connecting because the IP address continues to change. You want a static IP address. To undo that static IP address, we need a different server, a different service in AWS, and we call that elastic IP. We need elastic IP in AWS. So I'll go to elastic IP, look at it here, or elastic IPs. I'll right click and open it in a new tab. Now, under the elastic IP, I need to allocate an IP address. So the elastic IP address is going to be the stable IP address. It's not going to be changing. So I'll click on allocate IP address. And now, if the region that you're working with is not Ohio, you will not see this option. You are going to have an issue here. So that's why I said you should select Ohio. So now I'm going to scroll all the way down. All of this is fine, and I'll click on allocate. So that will allocate a specific IP address for me. Then I'll click on this IP address. Now I have an IP address allocated. What I want to do is I want to associate this IP address to my EC2 instance, to this EC2 instance I have running. I want to associate this IP address to this one. This is a class on its own. Believe me when I tell you this. This is a class on its own in cloud computing. This is a class on its own, and I'm going to have to, I think I'll release some series here so that maybe you understand this more. This is a class on its own. So we want to link the IP address, and why we are doing this is if we don't have a stable IP address, the connection will continue to lose our connection. So we need to have an IP address that is stable, and we need to associate that IP address to our instance IP address. So this elastic IP address, we've created it, but now we need to associate it to our instance. You can see, let's go back. This is our IP address here. I'll click on associate IP address, and we need to associate by instance, and we need to search for that instance. As you can see, the instance that we have running, and I will just click on associate, and that's all we need to do. So now we have associated the IP address. So you can look at it here, elastic IP address associated successfully. Now, one thing we need to do is to set the reverse DNS record. So DNS means domain name system. So the domain name system is a way of linking your IP address to a particular name that is associatable or that is recognizable. For example, if I'm to go to cyclobo.com, for example, this is our website here, cyclobo.com. This cyclobo.com has its own IP address. Let me copy this from here. Go to the terminal just to demonstrate, and I'm going to type ping. Okay, that's fine. So I will type ping this. Let's do ping cycloboard.com, and you can see that the IP address of cycloboard is retrieved. Imagine we copy this IP address now, and we now go here and paste here. You can see that it shows working. So this working is what we add to test that it is working. So we are redirecting. This is a security measure actually. So we are redirecting people from so we don't want people to access the website using this IP address. So we did some internal settings that prevent people from visiting the website by entering the IP address. But on a normal day, you can visit the IP address, you can visit the website by entering the IP address. But this will mean that your users must always remember the IP address anytime they want to visit your website. So to prevent this, you give them a name that they can easily remember. So instead of them typing the IP address, you give them cycloboard.com. The act of connecting the domain name to the IP address is defined by the domain name system, the DNS. And there is a global record that keeps the connection between the domain name and the IP address. So the DNS is just a global record, an open record that shows the connection between IP address and the domain name. So we need to set up the reverse DNS record. So what are the things we need to do to set up the reverse DNS record? So we're going to do 2 more steps and we stop the class for today because a lot of things have been unpacked. In our next class, we are going to take a look at each of these things. This is going to be a very, very long, a very interesting class. So we'll take a look at each of these things. And in the next class, we'll start all over again. But this time around, I will not stop here. I will move beyond. I'm not going to leave the instance running. So I have to destroy it. So in the next class, we'll do all of this. Okay, so let's set up the reverse DNS record. So how do we do that? To set up the reverse DNS record, we need to go back to our EC2 here. I'm going to go here and I'll go to a different service. I'll call it Route 53. So I'll click on Route 53 and this will pop up. All right. Here, all I need to do in this area is to create what is called a hosted zone. So the hosted zone will be our domain, which is going to be sharedrack.com. But yeah, I think we should leave it like this, sharedrack.com. That's a domain that we're trying to work with. And it's going to be private. And then, it's going to be public. And because we don't want to be, if it's private, then it means it's going to be within Amazon, but it should be public. You can add a description if you like, and it will create the hosted zone. So now that we've done this, you can see that we have been given some name servers. So sharedrack.com, the record is sharedrack.com, the NS here, and we see we have some name servers. So I'll copy these name servers here, go to my Namecheap, and I'm going to go to Namecheap and I'll set up my custom DNS here, and I'll paste my custom name servers there. So the first thing I'm going to do is copy this. Don't worry, I'll soon stop the class. I'll paste there. I know that a lot of things are already going on. So I'll copy this from here and I will paste it. I will add more. Go back here, copy from here. I will paste here, add more, copy this from here, and I will paste it. And then once we are done, we will check, and that should add. So now we've added, you can see DNS server update has been taking place. So what we're trying to do here is, this is where our domain name is hosted. The domain name is different from the main hosting. So we want to link our domain name to the host, which is this host that we have here. So we are using the name servers. So the name servers will point the domain name to the different registers that AWS has all over the world, and these are the pointer to those registers. Okay, so now that we've done that, the next thing we want to do is we can set up a record. So here we are done with this. We don't need to do anything here again. We are done with this part. So we are going to focus here. So we're going to create a particular record called the A record. So I'll click on this, and I'll, for the subdomain, which is going to be, so we will name our domain sender, or we can call it mailer or mail, mail.sharedrag.com. This is what we are naming our record. This, and then it's going to be a an A record. So an A record, please, this is important. An A record will route traffic to an IP address. So A record will connect your domain name to an IP address. That is what it does. So this is the domain name that I want to connect, and then the IP address is going to be the elastic IP address that we have here, which is this one. Copy this from here. We want the elastic IP address that we have. We go back here, and then we paste the IP address here. And then once we are done, I think we made a mistake. We just say add, and it will add. Look at it, it has added. So once we are done with this, we can go back to our elastic here, and we can set up our reverse DNS record. Sometimes this may fail, but we will continue to make adjustments. So we'll click on action, and we're going to say update reverse DNS. That's what we're going to type, or update reverse DNS. So I'll click on this. The domain name we're going to be using is mail.sharedrag, remember, .com. And I'll type update here. Let's hope that this will go. So I'm going to do update, and let's see if it's going to run. So it says pending. So what I will do is that I will refresh to see if it has failed, because this may actually fail, and I have concept into why it may fail. So it's still pending. So once it's active, you will see there that it is active. So let's continue to check to see if it will grant us that reverse DNS. Okay, so it's still saying pending. And so what it's doing is that it is checking what we have in our Namecheap. It's checking what we have here to see if it matches. So I'm going to refresh to see if it has failed or if it has passed. So let's wait for it to finish. And then once it has passed, we will do one more step, and we'll stop the class for today. Then we will continue on Thursday. Please note that I will put some resources, because the class is getting more serious now. I'm going to put some resources in the channel so that you can follow up with those resources. You can better understand the concept. So let's refresh to see if this has loaded. I pray it doesn't fail. So it's still pending. So let's wait for it to be active. Because if this is not active, we won't be able to do anything.
Question. So
yes,
to get this far, does it mean each individual of us must already create a domain name? A domain.
Yes. So the requirement for part of the requirement for the class is that every individual should have a domain name. Should have a domain name, and I think it's very important. You should have a domain name. It is a requirement for the training. So you can buy a domain name. It's per year. I think you know how this thing works. Yes. So it's just buy a domain name. It's a requirement. Every candidate should have a domain name, because you won't be able to do this without a domain name. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is like this: mail.sharedrag.com, and then we'll be able to go to the place where the server is hosted so that we can do all the things we want to do. And you may want to have SMTP settings. So you will be able to copy this and send to someone as your SMTP setting. So it's important. And this is the domain name right here. So you need to have a domain name. So this domain name is made up of two parts. We have the root domain, which is this sharedrag.com, and then we have the subdomain, which is this mail. Yeah. So hopefully, let's hope that this thing does not fail. So we will be able to. Don't know why it's still pending. Oh, okay, fine. So it has gone. So you can see that now it's working. So if it failed, you will see failed here. It will tell you that it has failed. So if we not do all those things that we did, this one will fail. You will see a failed message here. And so now it has succeeded. So the next thing we need to do is to go to the next, to perform the next thing. So we need to set up a pointer traffic. So the A record associates the domain name to an IP address. That is what the A record does. The PTR record associates the IP address to the domain name. So we can set up that. If we like, we can just come here and click on where is it? Create record again, and we're going to do the for the mail.shedrack.com. I'm going to go to PTR. You can see all the records there. You can see we have CNAME, we have TXT. So under this TXT, we're going to be looking at DKIM, SPF. Even though we have it here, we're going to be looking at all of those things here as well. So, and then you can see we have MX here as well. So we'll come back to this MX later. So I'm going to click on the PTR, and the IP address I want to put here is going to be this IP address. So I'll copy this from here, and back here, I will just enter this IP address and I will create a record. So now we have the PTR set, everything is fine, so we can continue. So we have set up the PTR, we've done the A record. The next thing is to set up the MX record. So that's the next thing we want to do. So MX record is important when we are trying to. So if you don't set up the MX record, it's for mail. It's for mail for mails, for emails. If it's not set up, you will not be able to send and receive email. So that's why you need to set it up. So I'll click on this create record, and I'll go to MX here. You can see specify mail servers, and the mail server we want to set up here is, the name is mail.shedrack, and the name is still mail.shedrack.com. But we need to put the priority. So the priority defines how the receiving servers should undo your own server. So when your server sends an email, how should the receiving server or the recipient servers undo the email that your server is sending? The higher the priority, so there is an inverse relationship between the priority number and how the servers will see the emails. So I'm going to put 10 here. 10 is the usual standard, the average number. So just put 10 there. When we get to the spoofing, we'll come back to this and we'll talk about this in detail. So I'm going to do create record. And now we have set up our MX. Again, MX record is for mail server. You have to set it up, else you will not be able to send an email. So once we've done that, the next thing we want to do is we need to log in back into our SSH and do the last thing we want to do for today, and then we end the class. This one is going to take, may require us to scratch our head again, but it's very important. So we'll go back to the terminal. So I'm going to stop this right now. Then I want to log in. Now, if I try to log in, okay, this one I'll close it, and I'll open the terminal again. So let me play here. So I'm going to go into downloads, because that is where our private key is. So now I want to SSH back into our EC2 instance. So if I do an ls rep PEM, you can see we have our mail server there. And remember how to connect to this. So I'm going to go back to here and click on connect. We connected the other time. And I'll copy this code from here. Note what is going to happen now. Let's see if we should be able to connect. You can see that we can't connect anymore. We cannot connect anymore because the IP address that we are using has changed. So it's no longer 3.1614103. It has changed to the elastic IP, this one. So I'm going to copy this one instead, go back here, I will stop this, and I will change the IP address. So it's now going to be, let's remove this from here. I'll paste this there. Now I need to put a dash, I think, dash here, and this should be able to connect us. I think yes. So now you can connect. Again, note that we are doing this because we are using our elastic IP address. So Mr. Ole, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So we do a yes, and then we are added, and we are in. So you can see now that we have been able to log in. So I'll clear. So what I want to do is to install what is called Docker and Docker Compose. And once we are done with that, we'll stop the class for today. We want to install Docker. So remember I said you need Docker and Docker Compose. So Docker is a containerized, it's a container management system. It allows you to manage your applications in containers. Don't worry, we'll discuss containerization in the future, because as a network engineer, I do not see how you will not know how to manage applications in containers. So we'll discuss containerization in the future. But just note that Docker allows you to create applications or environments that you can easily dispose. It's like it's just like your virtual manager, your your VM, the one that you installed, and you put this thing on top, Kali Linux. So it's like your VM, but it is disposable. You can easily dispose it, and it is maintainable. It is very, very portable. So we need Docker. So let's install Docker. Go back to our Windows, and then I'll go to install. Sorry, I'll go to install Docker on Ubuntu. So I'm going to look for, this is the official website. I'll click on install Docker engine on Ubuntu. And please, okay, let's continue. So let's see how to do the installation. You can see the setup here. So the first thing is to please read through this documentation very well. But these are all the steps starting from here. So I'm going to run this command, sudo apt get update. Back here, sudo apt get update, and it will update our repo. And then we're going to run this command to add this particular this package to our repo. So we're going to do that. That has been added. I'm going to clear. Then we need to add the official GPG key rings. I'll copy this from here. Please don't copy with the dollar. Then I'll paste here. Actually, you can click on this copy from here if you want, but I just like to do this step by step. Once we are done with that, we copy this. Now paste here, and again, I'll go to the next line. I'll set up the repo. I'll copy all of this. Again, remember, don't copy the dollar. I'll paste here. That has been done. And then we need to now run this update again. I'll copy this from here. And I'm going to, copy this. I think, yes. So I'll run paste here. And that will update everything. And so I'm not going to run, forget about this. Then I'm going to copy this to finally install Docker. Copy this, paste there, and I will say yes to the prompt. And that will install this for us. Okay, so it's asking us which services. We don't need anything here for now. I'm just going to say okay. Now that we have that, we know we have Docker. All we need to do to check whether Docker is installed is by running Docker. And you can see that it gives us all of this. So we know that we have Docker now when we type this. So you can also say Docker -v for version, and you can see that it gives you the version. Also, automatically, it will give us Docker Compose. So you can see that we have Docker Compose as well. So I'm going to clear my screen. And from here, I will start to, I think we are done. So Yeah, okay. So I'm not done. So we need to add the last thing. This is the last part actually. So we need to add Mailcow. So Mailcow is the Mailcow is the mail server that we need to add. It's an open source mail server. Mailcow is an open source mail server. It's an open source, meaning that you can use it to build your own mail server. This particular thing we are doing, I will plead with us, right, to learn this thing very well. This is all some network engineers do for big companies. They will call you to come and set up their mail system. This is all they do. They know how to do this thing very well, and they are experts. And they go to different companies like banks, like enterprise organizations, schools, to set up their mail system, and they get paid. So this is something that you do. You can set this up in a day or two, and you get paid in millions. Like your bill is going to be 2 million naira, 3 million naira for just to set this up. Imagine you are doing this for a bank, you are doing this for for an enterprise organization or a top organization. You're not going to be collecting thousands. This is something you do, and you take your time, you understand every part of this, and you set it up for them so that they can send emails. They have their own mail server. The benefit of having your own mail server is that it is much more, you have control, 100% control over the mail server. You can extend it. You can extend it. You can add features to the mail server. You can decide to do whatever you like. You can decide to make it commercial. Number four, you can decide to there's no limitation to what you can do with the mail server. The only challenge with this is that it requires technical know-how. It requires that you know exactly what you are doing, because if you do not set this thing up correctly, there may be problems like spoofing, which we'll discuss later. So we have an open source. So we are going to use Mailcow, and there are a number of these open source mail servers that you can use, like hundreds of them. But Mailcow is one of the commonest that you have available that you can use. So let's go to Mailcow. I'm going to go to the next app. Yes, sir.
Question: can we also use Mailtrap, the one you introduced us to the last time?
Okay, so Mailtrap is for testing. Mailtrap is for testing. It's for testing emails. So you see those Mailtrap people, they also use this type of mail server to set up their own Mailtrap. So Mailtrap is for testing. So if you want to test your emails and to check the deliverability or development, when you are developing applications and you want to test if your application is sending emails correctly, then you want to use Mailtrap. So for this series, no, you can't use Mailtrap. Other things you can use would be Sendinblue, but Sendinblue is not open source. As a matter of fact, Sendinblue is also like what you are about to do. What you want to do now is Sendinblue, just that they have modified their own. They've added a lot of features. So I'll go to Mailcow, and I can go to Mailcow install, and this is the official website I'm going to go to. This place, I'll click on the first one. So I'll scroll all the way down. Let's see. This is for Docker. This is telling you that you have to have Docker installed. So we have installed Docker already, so we don't need to do all of that. We have installed all of this already. So we've done all of this. Don't worry about this. You don't need to do this. So install Mailcow. So yes, this is what we need. We need to cd into the opt. So we're going to go to our instance. We cd into the opt folder, and let me go out of it. cd/opt. That's what I type, and you can see you are in the opt now. If you do a pwd, you see you are in opt. And the next thing you want to do is to clone. Copy this from here. Don't copy the hash. Then I'll paste. Oh, sorry about that. Then I'll paste it. Then so you can see anytime you see permission denied, it means you need to put a sudo in front. Sudo. And it will clone into that Mailcow Dockerized. So once it's done, we need to cd into Mailcow Dockerized. So now that we are in it, if I do an ls, you see we have a bunch of files inside. The file that we need right now is this file here, this guy. So I'm going to launch that. You can see we need to launch it there. So that will be sudo /generate config.sh. So that will run the file. You set up all the things we need. It's asking us to put in our mail server host name. Remember the host name we provided. Our fully, so FQDN means fully qualified domain name. So it's asking for our fully qualified domain name. So our fully qualified domain name is mail.shedrack.com. That's what we entered when we were creating our domain. Remember, so we'll do an enter here. It's asking for a time zone. For now, we can just leave it empty. We don't need anything. So it's asking us to choose the branch. So we're not going to choose nightly because that's experimental. So we'll just choose the first one, which is recommended. We type 1, enter 1, and we'll say hit enter. And that will generate some certificate for us and all of the things we need. Yes. So once we are done, the next thing we need to do is to run 2 commands. That will be sudo docker and then sudo docker compose pull, like that. So we're going to do this command and then we run it and it's going to pull certain things in. I'm sure Mr. Wole is going to be familiar with what I'm doing right now because he has a background in cloud computing and
Yeah.
DevOps. So yes, so but Mr. Agbo, I'm very sorry, sir. I'm sure this is like we are throwing too much. I know you are trying to, I understand. I know you now that you are trying to figure it out. But all the same, a lot of things are being thrown out. Mr. Solomon, just hang in there. I know I'm throwing so many things at you right now. Just hang in. Just try to. I will stop the class very soon. I just have one more command. Just hang in, and in our next class, we'll continue from here. All right. Do you have questions, Mr. Agbo? Do you have questions?
No.
Sorry, sir.
I said no. Let me go
Okay.
with it for now. I hope to understand.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Solomon, how is it going? I think he has
I
disconnected.
don't think he is in. Yeah, he
Okay. Oh, he has disconnected. Okay, cool. So what we have is, so it's still pulling. Once it's done pulling, we are going to run the last command and then that should be all. Now that we are done, we need to run our last command, which will be docker compose up in detached mode. So that will bring up all the services. Okay, so we need to put a sudo in front. Sudo docker compose up, and that is going to bring up all the services. All right. So now that we are done, I think for now we have been able to, we have been able to put some things in place. What I want to do is to go to my terminal here and see if we can actually enter mail.shedrack.com. Let's see if that will even work. Fantastic. Now you can see that we can access this page. Now you know why I said that we need to do this. Now you can access it. This one will be sorted out eventually. Now all we need to do is to log in into our mail server. So by default, the username and password will be admin and Muhu, I think. So I'm going to log in. So by default, username and password is going to be yes. So you have logged in. So by default, username and password for the for Mailcow, we'll stop here now. By default, username is going to be admin and password is going to be Muhu, like this. So that means you need to change the username and password once you log in, and you can always do that. You can see all the services running. And here, you can go to configuration. So they've changed the interface. In fact, I'm looking at the interface now. It's been changed. So, but you can change that here. Let's see. So you can change the interface. You can change the username and password. It can't be here. Definitely cannot be here. So option. So let's go to email configuration. I think it's so it's not here. Anyway, there's a place where you can change username and password. You have to do that. I think it should be configuration or information, one of the two. Okay, here. So you can see here. So you change the edit it, and then you can change the. So I'm going to change this one to Shedrack mail, or I just send it to Shedrack, and I will enter my password there. And once I'm done, I will enter my password there also. I will reconfirm the password there, and I'm going to save changes. So now I've changed the password. You have to do that so that, because it can be, it's easy to guess your password if you don't change it. So now we have successfully hosted our own mail server. We're not done with the class. We still have a number of things to do. For example, the next thing to do now might be to set up our own, to start configuring our mailboxes, our domain. We don't have a domain now. We need to set up our domain. That's the next thing we want to do. Then once we do that, we will start protecting the domain with our DKIM, the SPF, all of those things. Like, we need to start setting them. So it gets interesting from there. So we're going to stop here for today. And the video for this class is going to be available. Hopefully, everything has been recorded to the cloud. So we just easily share the video. For this class, we share the video. In the next 15 to 30 minutes, the video should be available. So we share so that you can watch and then, ask questions in the next session. All right. Any question? Any question?
Yes, I think this is a very interesting class here, and it is very resourceful because I think with this we can bypass having to go to all these expensive mail providers.
Yes.
And just undo
Yes.
the whole thing by ourselves. So I want to know the cost implication. So are we going to be paying Mailcow one?
So it's
the other
no.
one,
Okay.
we won't be paying
Okay.
Mailcow.
No. It's open source. You won't pay. The only thing you pay for is you pay for the instance, the server that you are using. But remember that you're only paying once. So if you are paying $5 or $10 per month, for example, you can host as many emails as you like and as many domains as you like. You can have as many emails as you like.
But is
you
it
can
not
even be
pay as you go?
No. It's not pay as you go. So it depends. It depends on what you are doing. This one is not even pay as you go, because you remember that when you were setting up your EC2 instance, you specified the size that you want to use. So in as much as you're not using beyond that size, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. A particular inbox can have 1 gigabyte. You can decide to ration the inbox based on what the users are paying for. So you are the mail provider now. You can say, okay, if you pay me $5, I'll give you 1 gigabyte of storage, or 500 megabytes of storage, which is a lot, considering the fact that most users don't even use these things to send anything serious. It's just text and a little attachment here and there. So that is it. So that is it. So you can set up as many emails as you like, and you can turn this into a commercial, an enterprise. But the important thing here is, yes. So, but the key thing is that a lot of companies actually look for engineers that can set these things up for them. And now that I'm thinking about it now, we are going to have a session on Cycloboot where we have this, we offer these services. We have a number of things that we offer, but these things are not listed on our website. So sometimes companies can ask you to help them set up this thing as a network engineer. Remember that the cybersecurity expert, you are not just cybersecurity, you are not just in cyber, you also do networking. So they may ask you to come and set up their email infrastructure for them. All you need to do is just do exactly what we have done, add a little bit of icing to it, and then you are good to go. You collect your money. It's as simple as that. They come and set up, please set up an email. We want to have our own email system, our own email server. Okay, that's what you do. Set it up for them. All these things you are doing cannot be more than a day or two, and you are done. You're done. You are done. You just make sure that you just add a little bit of features and everything, and then you are done. So by the time you finish this class, you notice that you'll be able to send email to the. So once we are done here, we will create email inboxes that you can send emails to, and I can send emails out. So we will do that here. That's what we're going to be doing. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the class. Thank you very much for your time. Our next class will be on Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Yes.
We will get the link on the Slack, right?